What's up, everybody? Paul here from the Hoops Crew, and for the first time in 2025, it is time to record an episode of NUFF of the Week. This show where we talk about some of the dumb sides of the AFL industry. There's plenty of awesome things, there's plenty of highlights, plenty of things to celebrate, but of course, there's a bit of stupidity that goes on as well, and I want to take some opportunities to highlight that just a little bit. Now, for our first NUFF of 2025, it's going to go to the St. Kilda Football Club and the way it has approached this bloke, Finn Callaghan. You've probably heard a little bit about this story already. Finn has been the recipient of a fairly huge offer, which he has declined and signed on further with the GWS Giants. And we're going to talk about it and then specifically some of St. Kilda's highly illogical thinking, especially when it comes to list management and external recruiting in this episode of NUFF of the Week. Buckle in, let's get into it. But first, a word from our sponsor.
The Hoops Crew Media Network is proudly sponsored by Cyril Cook Florist, established in Geelong since 1915. Visit their website at www.cyrilcookflorist.com.au. That's Cook with an E. Give them a call on 035 222 2244 or mention the Hoops Crew to get yourself 20% off your next in-store purchase when you visit them at Shop 12, 11 Leather Street in Breakwater.
Thank you, Cyril Cook Florist, as always, for everything you do in your support of the Hoops Crew and what we do. Now, let's talk a little bit about Finn Callaghan, who he is. Let's set the stage a little bit because he may not really be a household name just yet, and yet he warranted a $17 million offer from the Saints to lure him across. Let's set the stage for who he is a little bit first, though. As we can see from our numbers, and these are our 2024 numbers here, he's averaging 22.9 disposals a game. It's above average, but it's not elite. Kicks, you can see, like he's more of a handball player. His ratio tips on the side of the handball. He doesn't necessarily mark the ball a huge amount. His tackles are pretty average. His clearances are pretty average. You would look at this, and you would look at what we're seeing across 2024, 2023, 2022, and keep in mind he's only played 3 seasons in the AFL up to this point. You would look at that and go, this is a really solid player who I think could be an excellent player in the future, but he hasn't necessarily proven that just yet. Some great numbers, a great start. He hits the scoreboard. How often does he hit the scoreboard? Not very often at all. He's kicked 7 goals in his career up to this point. There's a lot of promise here. There's a lot we can do and develop this bloke into, but he doesn't deserve $17 million. And yet, that is exactly what the St. Kilda Football Club did with a very, very interesting decision here where they offered him $17 million. Let's bring up that report. It was an exclusive from 9 Sports. Tom Morris put it together. GWS Giant star Finn Callaghan knocks back the biggest offer in AFL history. Now, a bit more has played out as of the time that we record this, where it's not just a case of Finn receiving a monster offer of $17 million and declining it, but also he's now gone on to sign on the Giants with a much shorter contract for much less money. That is something we can peek into a little bit as well, but we'll focus on kind of some of the facts first. So GWS star Finn Callaghan has shunned the biggest offer in AFL history and is set to remain a Giant until free agency. It's understood St. Kilda verbally presented a proposal of at least 10 years and more than $17 million in a bold bid to lure the 50-gamer back to Bayside Melbourne. He's played 50 games up to this point. How many players? I mean, we're a Geelong show here, so let's hone in on Geelong a little bit. How many of you watching out there now, had Joel Selwood been breaking through at the same equivalent point in his career, how many of you would have offered Joel Selwood $17 million over 10 years? You wouldn't. For as good as he is, you just don't make deals like that. Nick Dacos is probably a modern-day equivalent when we're talking about him. Harley Reid, those sorts of guys. You don't offer those sorts of sums of money. It's just, especially over that amount of time, it's an illogical sum, an irrational sum, and completely unnecessary as a part of list management process. And it's so interesting that deals like this are being thrown around when, Sauce, Stephen Silvani is one of the heads of this at St. Kilda. He knows this program very well. He obviously knows GWS quite well, but he would have had no crossover with Finn Callaghan in his time. It's a crazy offer that's going on here. We continue on. The 21-year-old, barring a late unexpected backflip, will soon put pen to paper on a fresh 4-year agreement that will lock him at the Giants until the end of 2029. He took 6 less years to stay at the Giants. And I think what we really want to hone in on here is basically a point of desperation that St. Kilda is at, because this is not the only deal of this type that they've made in the recent history. We're going to bring up a couple of other reports here as well, where we can talk about Tom De Koning, we can talk about Zach Merritt. There's a whole range of offers just like this that they have put together in recent months. We're going to bring another one up here that relates to Tom De Koning, where Nick Riewoldt, interestingly, I mean, the headline is, Nick Riewoldt backs the $12 million play. I don't think that really matters, I guess, what Nick Riewoldt thinks. It doesn't really matter what I think in this particular case. But they offered $12 million to Tom De Koning as well. And that is still kind of an ongoing saga at the moment that Tom hasn't really sorted out one way or the other. Of course, there's this St. Kilda offer. Of course, there's a conversation about him going to Geelong, I should say, to join his brother Sam. But we can see $1.7 million a year again, so the same per season average that we're seeing for Finn Callaghan being offered, and presumably over a shorter period of time for it to be $12 million. It might be over 6 or 7 if I recall. I can't remember the exact details here. But he's a ruckman who pays $17 million, $12 million for a ruckman in this current climate. We are getting there. We're getting closer and closer to the $2 million a season player, but we're not there yet. And certainly Finn Callaghan with 50 games under his belt, Tom De Koning, who shows a lot of potential, and I would very much like to see it, the Cats, shows a lot of potential, but also doesn't warrant $1.7 million a season. Like these are crazy offers. And then finally, and probably the one that at least makes some modicum of sense, they offered and this was a very public thing as well, where they chased, I'm trying to find it amongst all my reports here, they chased Zach Merritt as well. And, Zach Merritt acknowledged it. And this is an old one. This report goes back to trade period last year. But there was a massive play made for him. And Zach Merritt, I can at least see it. Now, of course, we're not talking about a 10-year deal in the case of Zach Merritt, because he's 28 years old already. As of the time of reporting, he might even be 29 now, depending on when his birthday is. But, he's about 28 years old. He's probably got 5 years of absolute peak football still in him, you would have thought. And then after that, we know what the game is like these days. More experienced players are starting to get chewed out a little bit more as the youth comes through and the speed remains on the game. He'll find a way to evolve because he's not necessarily the fastest player as it is, and his game smarts and his disposal quality is his greatest asset. But he would certainly command less money at this particular point. So, but there was a massive, massive offer put there. At the moment, he's not even on $1 million a season. I would say that right now, he probably doesn't need to be. There's not many players that actually command that sort of money right now. And if you want to see what those figures look like, there was a video I put together a couple of weeks ago that was talking about the top 100 AFL players in the competition in terms of their salary. I don't know if he necessarily hits that. And of course, you offer more to player out of a club. But even Zach Merritt would be only there or thereabouts with $1 million, not 1.7. These are crazy, enormous deals that St. Kilda are making, and it doesn't make a lick of sense. And what it screams of is desperation. And that's not a good look for any club. We know the history of St. Kilda. We know how down on their luck they've been, how unlucky they've been in finals, how many near misses they've had. The bounce of a ball cost them a win in 2010. A toe poke maybe arguably cost them a grand final in 2009. A shaped goalpost in 2009 might have cost. They've been very, very unlucky, and they've had some amazing players over a long, long time. But the reality is, this stinks of desperation, and when you're putting out that energy, that's not appealing. You just, if you're an AFL player, if you're Finn Callaghan as the most recent, at least publicly acknowledged recipient of one of these offers, you go, me. There's Tom De Koning, there's Zach Merritt, there's player XYZ that may have also received these offers as well. You go, they don't really know what they want. They just want some profile, and they want to throw big bucks around. And again, it's just not a good look. You're not winning anyone over. You're not convincing external people. And you're probably also not convincing your own supporter base that you have any idea what you're doing, that you have a direction in mind. You're just trying to take the best available. And this isn't the draft. This is not the draft we go, we're going to pick the best player available. No, you're looking for players who complement what you've got. You're trying to develop a list. They don't have an obvious superstar right now. And I do get that. But that's not Finn Callaghan. I mean, maybe he will be one day, but that's not Finn Callaghan right now. And it's an enormous punt to take on a player who may or may not be a rock star. Tom de Koning does not fit that profile whatsoever. Zach Merritt does, but you're offering less. You're not trying as hard, and he's got less time to spend at your club. The players, the pieces around him need to develop really fast so that he's going to be of any use and potentially be a guiding light towards a premiership. And we also know that Zach Merritt hasn't seen and won a final yet. There's so many question marks around the players that they're going for, and it doesn't make any sense. And it makes it so much easier if you're a potential candidate for the Saints in the future. If you're someone that they're reaching out to go, no, I'm not interested, sorry, but this stinks. You're desperate. You don't know what you want. You don't know what you're doing. Managers will smell this stuff out and will encourage their players not to go for it whatsoever. Unless for this player, it is all about the money. And there are certainly individuals like that out there. Unless they are all about the money and they are not chasing that personal or team success, then they're not going to be interested in St. Kilda. And it looks ridiculous. It looks really bad. And I feel for the club. I feel for its supporter base. Because you're being made to look like fools. Sauce is better than this. The various other leaders within the club are absolutely better than this as well. Don't get desperate. Build your list up. Be really strategic in the draft. Pick some great players. When you've got this young grassroots, this underbelly that's coming up that looks really, really promising, players are going to take interest and they're going to want to come to your club based on those merits. And that's what you want. You want to be an appealing option, not a desperate option. Anyway, that's my ranting done with for this particular episode of Enough of the Week. It's the first of 2025, and I look forward to cracking into a whole bunch of other teams, individuals, supporter bases, whatever it happens to be over the course of this year. Thank you very much, as always, for checking this episode out. If you enjoy what you see now, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Give the video a thumbs up, like it, share it. Check out all the other awesome content on the YouTube channel as well. Postgame Live is back. I'm doing match reactions. We've just done one for Geelong and Essendon in the last 24 hours. Go check that one out as well. There's so much you can enjoy. The Paul James Show airs Thursdays and Sundays, twice a week, live with the community, sharing all of their thoughts at the same time. Join us for that as well. Subscribe to us on Patreon for the meager cost of $5 a month. You can get early access to content, exclusive content, and extended content, all delivered to your email inbox. Check it all out. It's some great stuff from myself, Ben, the chaps, and more. Social media-wise, you can find me at Paul James Games, The Hoops Crew, at The Hoops Crew. Thank you very much for watching. As always, remain Geelong strong, everyone, and I'll see you later.